inside the North Park, and we're glad you are with us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Chase Ingram. Mike Arsenault is down on the competition floor. Event number 6 couldn't be simpler. Chase, we're going up and over.
Man, we have a nice little chipper style of getting to that lunge at the end, but you got to get to the muscle-ups and the log. We have another new implement here on the floor. We've seen it back at the ranch, but this one's a little bit higher and a little bit different. And those GHD sit-ups, you see those tarps over them to keep the heat up. But what we're looking at here, when I see these movements, and I've heard this from a lot of coaches looking at this, is the hips are going to take a hit because what we've already done today, 3.5 miles of running, Husafell carries, pig flips, and then at the end with that front rack lunge, it's going to come down to who wants it more.
And those are your keys to success presented by Barrett Complex. Let's send it down to Mike Arsenault on the field.
Well, the jump over portion of this event is all about showcasing agility and athleticism, and that will start with the log here, 50 inches off the ground. All the athletes will be able to navigate the 25 reps up and over. The separator will be the athletes that are more athletic and more agile will be able to do this portion of the event that much quicker, and that will also set them up well for the box jumps and the jump over the pigs here in event number 6.
2 heats of 20 men here in event number 6. Brent Fikowski's a man that needs to start making a move here to get himself up the overall standings. And then lanes 11 through 19 have a handful of rookies, Dallin Pepper, Enrico Zanoni, and Tudor Magda. But Guy Majeros, not where we expected him to be at this point in the competition.
Not at all. This is a guy who had, his name was in the conversation of maybe podium or at minimum top 5. But when you look at this event specifically, this is very similar to what we saw in the quarterfinals. In quarterfinals event number 2, that was 3 rounds of muscle-ups, pistols, and GHD sit-ups of 30, 30, and 10. A few more muscle-ups, same GHDs, but the middle portion is changed with these different jumping implements, whether it's over the log, onto a box, or clearing the pig. And he actually tied for first overall with the men's field that he's competing against. So this could be a big bounce-back event for him.
Guy Majeros, as Chase said, coming off a career best finish at the CrossFit Games last year, 7th overall. There's Arthur Semenoff. Dallin Pepper, one of the promising young rookies. And there's Baden Brown.
And the question is, how have these athletes recovered since the Capitol run? Because you had the pig flips, that is hands, biceps, hips. You had the run, which is a lot of posterior hamstring work, as Hinshaw was talking about previously. But then the jerry can carry and the Husafell back carry, where did everybody fail? It wasn't that it was too heavy, it's that they couldn't hold on to it anymore. So how have these athletes recovered since then?
Guillaume Briand out of France. And Brent Fikowski, who comes in 25th place overall. He was able to move up 5 spots after taking 15th in the Capitol.
With the field, if you look at quarterfinal 2 as any type of predictor, Fikowski was in the bottom 10 of the field based off that quarterfinals event.
Event 6, heat number 1 is underway, and we start with the 12 muscle-ups.
Talking to Adrian Bosman about this rep scheme, they've tinkered with that quite a bit, in the range being around 10 to 15. Landed on 12 because 12 is, he specifically quoted, that number that is going to dare the athletes to go unbroken. In their training, no problem. A lot of these athletes are 20-plus unbroken ring muscle-ups. Sets of unbroken 12 is nothing new. However, after everything they've gone through up until this point, knowing what's coming, and the fact that, look, we say this every time we see it on the Zeus rig, the ring strap length has a massive impact on your ability to do these muscle-ups.
Just about every athlete finishes those up at the same time. It's just up and over that log 25 times, however you can do it. 67 total scored repetitions in each round. And remember, we have the lunge after the 3 rounds of the muscle-ups. The up and overs and the GHDs.
Now, there's one specific piece to this movement that has to happen, or can't happen per se. The athletes cannot lay their torso on top of the log, so you can't just lay an arm around and swing a leg over. So you have to actively clear. And look at the movement pattern. Look at Guy. He's doing a wonderful job. It's almost a pommel horse style. But look, press out to come over. Press out to come over. Where is that going to come into play after 25 of these? The lockout of the ring muscle up.
Guy Majeros right now through 33 of his 67 reps here in round number 1. At the 37 mark, he will move on to the GHDs. Guy Majeros in the early lead here. On to the GHDs. Guillaume Briand, Tudor Magda, Brent Fikowski, Augustin Riquelme, and Alex Vigneault all done with their up and overs as well. Magda at the bottom of your screen. Vigneault is in the middle.
Now, being a 3-round event, with the volume at which we have for the muscle-ups, the speed that the log takes, the box jumpers and the clears of the pig, the GHD sit-ups is, there's elements of rest in here that athletes can take their time. A lot of times you'll see this race mentality. I have to get out fast. I have to be quick between my transitions. And there's enough time built in there just by the nature of the movements and how fast they could be done that you can just afford to sit in cruise control at a certain extent. But it's really, I think it's going to come down to the rig. I talked to a lot of coaches about their athletes before the event started, and they all had a plan for round 1. And to an athlete and a coach, they said, we'll play it by ear after that round, because they're not sure. It's like, okay, how do the jumps affect my hip extension? How did the GHD affect my ability to turn over at the top of the muscle-ups? And we'll find out that in round number 2.
Augustin Riquelme is the first man done with round number 1 through 67 of the 205 scored repetitions in this event. And Tudor Magda working his way back to the rings as well. Another 12 muscle-ups. Then it is on to the 42-inch box. They can use their feet to land on it, but that's the only part of their bodies that can touch it as they work their way over that piece of equipment.
And Augustin Riquelme, relative to the field, looking at quarterfinal 2 as a bit of a guide on who will do well. Second in the field to this. And one of his strengths really is high volume gymnastics. So as far as a skill set, this is a very decent event for Riquelme.
Riquelme with a couple rep lead over Majeros, Magda, Zanoni, and Vigneault right now. Riquelme making his 3rd career appearance at the games. Last year was his best career finish. He was 32nd. There's Guy Majeros. As Riquelme now gets set for the 42-inch box jumps. And again, they can do no rep. You can only get your feet on there.
And I was just about to say, I don't think people truly understand how high this box is. 42 inches, 3.5 feet, just over a meter in height. And there's a lot of stipulations here, is that, you know, it's a big jump. We've already taxed your ability to really extend your hips because of the GHDs and the muscle-ups twice. They're not allowed to put their hands down to aid with the landing as well. This is a very tough movement to do, especially after, again, the totality of the weekend. The event that we just had really took a lot of some of these athletes' legs.
Riquelme continues to lead, but Briand and Zanoni are creeping up on him. At the 104 mark is when he will be able to move on to the GHDs, and he's through 89 reps, is Riquelme. Remember, 42-inch box jumping, a guy that you immediately think of on this one. who might have a problem is that guy, Colton Mertens, but
yeah, and
seems to be doing just fine, getting plenty of runway there.
Yeah, it's the nature of the movement, and look, you get your strengths, you'll get your weaknesses, but Mertens, that big run-up is definitely something that he needs, and that's the balance of the test. It shouldn't favor one type of athlete as far as a skill set or strength. It shouldn't favor one type of athlete, whether it's their stature or body type. Everybody should get theirs. The fittest person at the end of the day across the divvy of tests will be the fittest at the end of the weekend.
Let's send it down to Mike Arsenault there on the field in the North Park.
We're just over 2 hours since these athletes finished the Capitol, and I spoke to a number of CrossFit Games veterans in the warm-up area, and they said to a man that was definitely one of the top 10 hardest CrossFit Games workouts they have ever done. Not really an opportunity for a full cool-down or a full warm-up. However, every athlete also told me that was probably the most memorable CrossFit Games event of their careers. Way more people at the Capitol than they expected, and they will remember that event for a very long time to come.
Enrico Zanoni is your new leader. He is now done with his 25 box jump overs and will move to the GHDs. He's the first Italian man to qualify for the games via regionals or semifinals.
And one of our keys to success coming in is that it's all about the hips. And one of the misconceptions about a GHD sit-up is that it's a core exercise, because that's usually the only thing that gets sore after you do it. It definitely has core, but more in a core stability. What's bringing you up is not the abdominals. It's not the interior part of your core. The abdominals' job in this movement is to make sure nothing gets out of place as far as flexion and extension. But watch his legs. As he goes back, he has a bent knee. To drive him up, he'll drive that leg straight. And that's when we say hips. That movement is activating and utilizing his hip flexors. And that's it, just a little muscle group. If you're just watching at home, sitting down, take your thumbs outside your belly button and put your middle fingers down. That's really the span of their hip flexors themselves. And that is what's getting taxed and smashed during these GHD sit-ups. Couple it with the jumps, the logs, and that carryover into the rings. There's so much unseen interference in this event. It's really beautiful.
Zanoni is done with round number 2, and he will work his way back to the muscle-ups. Bear Complex, the official grip of the NOBULL CrossFit Games. You can head to bearcomplex.com to shop the best grips on the planet. Get up to 15% off.
Now starting round number 3, 12 ring muscle-ups, normally in your gym, not after doing 6 events coming into this time. Ring straps about the height at which you prefer. What we look at is the turnover, and that receiving position for Zanoni is really high. Look how high he receives that in the dip position. Most athletes will land a bit lower. We saw Sam Briggs do this so well. And what that does is it saves the lockout just a bit that may be able to sustain you deeper into big sets as opposed to a full depth dip. But at the same time, more effort is needed to catch that high.
And this is why, if you want to climb that leaderboard going...
Zanoni has 4 reps remaining on his final set of 12 muscle-ups. Alex Vigno and Dallin Pepper are back on the rings as well.
See Vigno on just to the left. Again, that deep receiving position for the dips, what you normally see. Dallin Pepper on the left needs to be careful because that lockout out to the side and that push back, that's a lockout that we're trying to steer away from. And he just got a no rep. So good for the judge keeping an eye on that. But you got to really be careful. And that's something you see a lot of athletes default to when they're really struggling to finish out those reps.
Zanoni is now onto the box jump overs. You have to clear that pig. It's 2 feet wide, 20 inches high with every jump. So he got no reps. He has to land with his back to the pig.
Yep, so you have to clear it front facing the entire time. You can't twist in air. You got to land in the same position that you take off from. Now this is probably the quickest, I don't want to say easiest of the 3 implements so far in the middle portion of these rounds. This is actually where you can gain a little speed on somebody. But those box jumps themselves, that's probably the toughest part of the entirety of this event. Until we get to the front rack lunge, and that will be the leader in the clubhouse as far as most difficult portion of this.
2 Europeans lead here. Enrico Zanoni is through 162 of the 205 total scored reps. Guillaume Briand is right Behind him, he's about 7 reps back. Augustin Riquelme sits in third, followed by Alex Vigneault and Brent Fikowski in 5th place in this first of 2 heats for the men here in event number 6. The second of 3 events they will face here on Friday in Madison.
I talked about the interference of the movements between themselves, how the jump affects the hip extension that you need to have an effective and quick GHD sit-up, how that affects the turnover in the ring muscle-up. We have still yet to mention the compounding effect of all 3 of these going into the front rack lunge at the end. The amount of core stability these athletes are going to need, the amount of front rack stamina and strength they're going to need with an axle bar nonetheless, is something we actually haven't touched on. I talked to Dan Bailey earlier, who actually tested this event, and he had a plan. He's like, okay, they got lines on the field. He's like, all right, I'll walk to the first line. He got about 4 steps in before that bar came down. So he said these athletes may have a rude awakening once that bar gets in the rack position.
Guillaume Briand, far side of the field, is in 2nd place. Enrico Zanoni is in 1st. No shirt with the green shorts. And now Alex Vigneault is on to his final set of 30 GHDs. At the 201 mark is when they will take off on that weighted front rack lunge with the axle bar.
It's the same weight we had last year at the finale, where we had 3 different walking lunges to the finish line. But with the axle bar, it presents a much different challenge. It doesn't sit on the front rack as cleanly. In fact, just getting it to the front rack is a challenge in and of itself. Bar's not spinning. You have to have a pretty big pull and turnover just to get it into position.
Here goes Zanoni on his 185-pound front rack lunge. He'll get a rep for every line he passes.
Last time I saw an axle bar front rack finish in competition was actually at the 2013 regionals. It was the second to last event of the weekend, and to a person, if you asked him what the toughest part of that was, it was this front rack position. If this was back rack or overhead, completely different discussion, but the fact that Enrique has yet to put the bar down is amazing.
Zanoni with his first stumble, and this is when you got to play it where it lies here. They don't have to retreat to the prior line. If they drop it, they pick it up where they drop the barbell when it first hit the ground. And here's Guillaume Briand.
If I do my traditional play where it lies in my golf game, I always give a little toe kick closer to the
NOBULL 7-iron,
closer to the fairway.
Briand, pardon me, is creeping closer to the Zanoni. Briand is towards the top of your screen as more men are getting on that front rack lunge, but Enrico Zanoni is about a lunge away, and he is in, and Enrico Zanoni is across the finish line, and he will take heat number 1 with a time of 14 minutes, 18.12 seconds. Guillaume Briand looking to be the next man to finish. But Brent Fikowski is putting the pressure on him. Fikowski gets his left foot in first, and here comes Brent Fikowski to take 2nd place ahead of Briand.
What a gamble by Brent Fikowski. He was that no man's land position of 1 step or 1.5. He needed to just set the foot out there and hope that it was enough to get across the line.
Here comes Dallin Pepper. He is in. Alex Vigneault is across. Pepper at 15:04.08 seconds. Vigneault 2 seconds back of him. And now Jay Crouch has finished up. 7 men have completed this event so far. Guy Majeros and Augustin Riquelme squaring off here, and Majeros is going to win that race. He smartly finds that giant fan. There's Riquelme, who had an early lead in this heat. And he's going to wind up taking 9th place. 15:58.08 seconds for Riquelme. But there's Enrico Zanoni, who right now has the top time, 14 minutes, 18.12 seconds.
And this is where he made his move. We're talking to Boz where you can actually make the most ground up or separate yourself from the pack. And he has said it was actually in the middle part on those 42-inch box jumps. But Enrico, once he got back to the rings for that third and final round, he only took one break. But when he got to the bar, the distance he traveled on his first lunge set was extremely far. But his ability to stabilize through that entire thing, very impressive performance by Zanoni.
Heinrich Happelein and Tim Paulson, Colton Mertens and Baden Brown have all come across the finish line. That's Andre Uday on the left and Tudor Magda on the right. Uday is in just ahead of Magda. Less than a minute to go before we hit the time cap. There's Georges Karavis. That's Arthur Semenov.
And if you haven't been following since day one, Semenov came in with a double hamstring injury and has still been gritting it out event to event.
Hoping to get across the finish line inside that 18-minute time cap. And does not look like he is going to make it. 18 of the 19 men in that opening heat finished the event. Enrico Zanoni has the top time, 14 minutes, 18.12 seconds. Brent Fikowski edges out Guillaume Briand at the finish line as 4 of the top 5 are all rookies. The top 4 all going sub 15. Dallin Pepper takes 5th with a time of 15:04.08 seconds. Heat number 2 is set to begin for event number 6 for the individuals here at the North Park at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Your overall standings through 5. Ricky Garrard is pulling away. He now leads Roman Krennikov by 78 points. Justin Medeiros sits in 3rd. He is 12 points back of Krennikov. Jeffrey Adler has moved into 4th, and Lazar Jukic is into the top 5, and Sam Quant has now moved up to 6th. Up and over is event number 6.
3 rounds for time, muscle-ups, jump overs, 25 reps. That changes every round, followed by 30 GHD sit-ups. And when that's all completed, taking it right into an 84-foot front rack lunge, 185 on the bar with that axle bar. And these logs that these athletes are going to have to jump over again, their torso can't touch it. And you look at the things that are getting taxed the most, it's like Chubb said, it's all in the hips, Sean. It's all in the hips. The hips are going to take a hit if they haven't taken one already after this morning, but with the jump overs and the GHD sit-ups, coupling that with the muscle-ups to bring that into that final lunge, if it comes out to a lunge race, it's really going to come down to who wants it more.
And who can go to his happy place and ignore the pain to get through this event. 20 men in this second of 2 heats. Overall leader Ricky Garrard will be in lane number 10. We mentioned Sam Quant. He finished 2nd a couple of years ago at the CrossFit Games in 2020 in Morgan Hill when it was just 5 men competing in person. Missed out last year, but he is climbing up the leaderboard here. Ricky Garrard, though, has been Mr. Consistency. 2 event wins so far. and doesn't look like he is going to slow up at all right now.
But if there's a wrinkle in the fabric for Ricky, it's compared to that quarterfinal event in this field, he was in the bottom 10 with an event very similar to this.
Send it down to Mike Arsenault.
Well, at the start of the week, we were fully expecting an Australian athlete to be at the top of the leaderboard in the individual competition. We just thought it was going to be tia-clair Toomey and not Ricky Garrard. He's starting to reach exit velocity, a 78-point lead here through 6 scored events. 7th is his worst place so far, and his confidence is just continuing to build. We're seeing he's almost like a ball rolling down a hill. Every event that he does well in, his confidence just continues to climb. I asked him how he's feeling. He's very relaxed. He's taking one event at a time. He says, I don't have pressure. Everyone else has pressure. They're the ones chasing me.
30 seconds.
And there is Ricky Garrard with a 78-point lead over Roman Krennikov and a 90-point lead over Justin Medeiros. We mentioned Sam Quant. Right now, 6th place overall, and he's moved up from 26th after event 1.
He just does it so quietly and so casually, but, you know, Quan is one of those athletes that I had in the top 10 as a potential to surprise some people, and he's already doing it in the place that he's in.
A little windy there in the North Park, but everyone has to deal with it. And here we go. Heat number 2.
Now,
and you can see some guys struggling to get up to the rings there because those things were blown around pretty well.
And I was talking about Ricky, and in an event like this, we saw at the quarterfinals. This happens every year where we see something earlier in the season maybe rear its head at the CrossFit Games. In 2017, it was the open workout 17.5, but with heavier weights between the thrusters and the double unders. Last year, it was the wall walk coming back with heavy thrusters. We've seen a lot of this over the years, and this is really a beefed up version of that quarterfinal qualifying event number 2, which was 3 rounds for time of muscle ups, pistols, and GHD sit-ups.
Already on to the 25 up and overs on the log. Medeiros and Ricky Garrard right next to each other. Here comes Roman Krennikov. Garrard right now has the lead, slightly over Olsen, Quant, Medeiros, and Gumanson.
Talking about where you can make your move. For this movement, for everybody, there's not a big separator here as far as difficulty of movement or height of the log. It's just your ability to navigate through this without losing ground on the field. But after the second round, we still have the GHD sit-ups after this, and then as we go back to the round. But those boxes on the left side of your screen at 42 inches and 25 reps is a huge opportunity to either separate yourself or fall behind the pack. So when that second round comes up, really keep your eye on how people are going to pace those out.
Ricky Garrard and one of the Panchiks onto the GHDs. It is Saxon Panchik, and here comes Justin Medeiros. So 30 reps here to close out round number 1. Enrico Zanoni has your top time, 14 minutes, 18.12 seconds. And it's Saxon Panchik right now who is in the lead.
You can see in the background at the Zeus rig, those rings swaying everywhere. And, you know, talk to some coaches is that their game plans on the muscle-ups might change, obviously based off their athlete's ability to maybe handle 12 reps. But the other is it almost worth coming off the rings and have them swing around even more, the time lost versus the effort gained between taking a break or going unbroken?
Saxon Panchik, your leader right now, 9th place overall, after taking 12th in the prior event. So he's been creeping up the leaderboard as well.
Just look through that extension on the back part of the GHD sit-ups. A lot of hip flexors involved. Just the muscle group that's in charge of opening and closing at the hip. If you just bend over and touch your toes and stand up, that's the muscle group we're isolating on the GHD sit-ups, and that has a dramatic effect on the athlete's ability to turn over on the ring muscle-ups.
Panchik, Garrard, Gumanson, Olsen, and Medeiros all done with round 1. There are 205 scored repetitions in this event. And Panchik is through 70 of those. At the 79 rep mark is when he will move on to his next set of up and overs, and this time it's that 42-inch box, and remember, you can only touch it with your feet on your way over.
It's a lot of effort every jump for 25 reps. And Ricky on the right side, looks like he took a break right around 7 where Panchik went unbroken. Medeiros took a break as well.
Saxon Panchik now to the 42-inch box, 25 reps here. The 104 rep mark is when he will move on to the GHDs. Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson has moved into second. Here comes Ricky Garrard and Noah Olsen.
There's so much effort per rep on these box jump overs at this height. 42 inches, just over a meter tall. Just a lot of things are getting tested and taxed. Obviously, we said the hips as well, but just the exertion. And think of it as far as like, okay, well, what does the difference really feel like? Okay, well, would you rather do regular burpees off the ground or bar-facing burpees when you have to jump over a bar? We're talking about maybe a 6 to 8 inch difference in clearance for the burpee, but it's so much more physically demanding. Your average box height for a male athlete in the sport is right around 24 inches, where the highest one's 30. We're adding a foot to this. So imagine how much more difficult that is from, say, your regular 24-inch box, nearly increasing it by another 2 feet.
Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson, we mentioned earlier, doing Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson things, just sneaking around, and now he's inside the top 10 for the first time after taking 9th in the Capital event. Breaks a string of finishes that he had outside the top 20. He was 24th in the shuttle to overhead, the second portion of that event, and then he was 25th in the skill speed medley, but second in Elizabeth elevated, and then 9th. So here comes Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson into the top 10, where we're accustomed to seeing him. Saxon Panchik moving on to the GHDs. Bear Complex, the official grip of the NOBULL CrossFit Games. Head to bearcomplex.com to shop the best grips on the planet, up to 15% off. Saxon Panchik, the only man on his second set of GHD sit-ups.
We said before, and just like Boz had predicted, is that where you can gain some ground on the rest of the field, and he has put a substantial gap between him and the field.
And here comes Pat Vellner, who has moved towards the front with Ricky Garrard and Sam Quant.
BKG is in the mix as well, so Vellner made a very big move on those box jump overs. And if you want to think about where does Vellner tend to always succeed the most, and it's events out here in the North Park with really classic CrossFit movements. We have gymnastics with the GHD and the ring muscle ups, as well as the box jump overs. It's a very good event for Pat Vellner's skill set, but Saxon Panchik is not backing down as he moves into his third round.
12 more ring muscle-ups for Saxon Panchik, trying to chase down Enrico Zanoni's top time of 14:18.12 seconds. Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson and Sam Quant, Noah Olsen, and Ricky Garrard have all caught and passed Pat Vellner on the GHD portion of round 2 as Panchik is into round 3, third and final round.
He's got unbroken the first 2 rounds. The athletes chasing him has all broke one time. At least between Medeiros and Garrard, but I don't even see them off the GHD yet.
Well, here comes Garrard, Quant, and Gudmundsson, as well as Pat Vellner back to the rings, as Saxon Panchik only has 3 reps remaining before he moves on to his final set of up and overs, and it's a jump up and over the pig without touching it.
And it looks like Saxon had broke it 6 or 7, so he did his last set into 2 sets. And the backside of your screen, just on the right, Pat Vellner, who is exceptional at high volume ring muscle-ups.
You know, you talked about how difficult that lunge was. The compounding effect of what these athletes are doing here in the middle portion of this event is making that movement even more difficult.
Absolutely, and think of one thing that we didn't talk about. We talk about the movement itself as being a detriment or an interference of the movement. Look at Saxon's body when he lands. Every landing, legs, quads, that landing takes its toll. It's not just the movement itself, but part of this, coming off a high box, landing over a box jump over or a clear over, takes its toll physically just as much, sometimes more, depending on how athletic you are when you do land, as the movement itself.
Sam Quant and Bjorgvin Gudmundsson on the right side. Noah Olsen is on the left in the gray shorts. They're trying to cut into Saxon Panchik's lead, but now he is on to his final set of GHD sit-ups. 30 reps for him here, and then it's on to that 185-pound axle bar. Ricky Garrard has moved into third, along with Cole Sager and Bjorgvin Gudmundsson. Now Pat Vellner is on to the jump overs on the pig as well.
Now Ricky looking a little fatigued here in the middle portion, and you know, we saw Ricky at the first event at the Torium Pro, a bigger chipper style, but a lot of different movements in there, and a lot of times, just depending on managing that fatigue, it's a delicate balance in an event like this.
First and third overall on your screen. Justin Medeiros in third place on the left with 471 points. Ricky Garrard done with his box jump overs, and all he needs to do right now is just stay close to Medeiros and Krennikov.
Yeah, you can't really concern yourself with what Saxon's doing on the other side of the field. He's so far out of contention, at least for your podium or first place position. You don't want to let that trap you into doing something of which your key priority, as you said, Sean, is staying ahead of Medeiros and Krennikov.
Saxon Panchik is now done with the 3 rounds of the muscle-ups, the up and overs, and the GHDs, and the 185-pound axle bar awaits. Time to beat is 14:18.12 seconds from Enrico Zanoni in Heat 1. And here goes Saxon Panchik. 84 feet. He'll get a rep for every line he clears. Saxon Panchik right now the only man onto the axle bar.
You saw Saxon switch hand positions in the middle of that, and a lot of that is, it's not necessarily grasping at straws towards the end, but it's the end of whatever it takes.
Here comes Ricky Garrard, solidly in second place behind Saxon Panchik.
I like how he just put his hands on the bar and just got it to the front rack position.
There goes Ricky, who looks to increase his lead yet again.
All right, you saw he had his fingertips on the bar. It gives you a better shelf and rack position, but the fingertips start to pink off the bar, and then once that happens, his last resort is just cross it over into that genie front rack position.
Justin Medeiros is on to the front rack lunges. Saxon Panchik is going to win event number 6. Ricky Garrard and Justin Medeiros in a fight for second. Now for Garrard again, he just has to stay close to Medeiros. If Medeiros beats him across the finish here, he's only going to pick up 3 points. And here comes Justin.
Oh, he had to step Ricky back behind the line.
So Medeiros is going to come in ahead of Ricky Garrard. Medeiros will take second place in the event. Ricky Garrard will take third. And he will only surrender 3 points to the defending champ.
The same shell game we saw Medeiros play on Vellner in the final day of competition last year.
Sam Quant and Bjorgvin Gudmundsson coming in. Quant in just ahead of Gudmundsson. Quant is in. That'll be good enough for a 4th place finish in the event, and Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson 5th.
Just a straight shot down the fairway. Probably used a 3-iron. You know, it doesn't get out the big dog. I don't need to go left into the woods.
That looks like Pat Vellner towards the top of the screen, so Vellner is trying to get back on track here. He can still finish in 7th place in the event as Cole Sager has just come across the finish line. So Vellner with the barbell down, and he is done. There's Uldis Upniks coming across. He'll take 9th.
Uldis had his legs lock up. To me, that's just a sign of maybe cramping.
And there's Jonakowski who's in. Spencer Panchik also finished. Spencer's going to take 10th. Kosi's going to take 12th in the event. There's Jeff Adler and Roman Krenikov. But Justin Medeiros was only 12 points back of Krenikov, and it's likely that Medeiros is going to erase that deficit and move into 2nd place overall. There's Jason Hopper. Willie Georges is done. Alexander Caron is across the finish. 15:02.20 seconds for Caron. And Lazar Jukic is in. Travis Mayer also finished. Leaves Nick Matthew, Jason Hopper, and Will Morad left on the field. And Matthew will be the next man to be done just ahead of Will Morad. So Jason Hopper has plenty of time to finish. Hopper, who came in 10th place overall, he finished 5th in the Capital event, but he's had an up and down competition. And he'll be outside the top 20 with this result.
That's down to recover from that, from this morning, is a tough thing to do, especially with this event on the tail end of it.
Hopper is across. And with that, event number 6 for the men is done, and Saxon Panchik picks up his first win of the competition. (12 minutes, 40 seconds flat for Saxon Panchik, the only man to go sub-13. Justin Medeiros is going to pick up 3 points on Ricky Garrard. Sam Quant will finish 4th, and Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson, right where we used to seeing him, 5th place. Mr. Consistency.
Saxon Panchik, we didn't talk about it over the first round, but in the second round, when he got to the box, I think someone told him where the key to the event is to get ahead of everybody. He got ahead on the box jump overs, but he really made a big push after these GHD sit-ups. Had enough time at the end to actually take 1 break on the ring muscle-ups in the 3rd round, but once he got to the end, only had to take 1 or 2 breaks. In fact, he got right to the end, dropped the bar, had to reset and pick it back up. But he had enough distance and enough work done between then and the finish line that Saxon Panchik doing what we thought we'd see more of across the weekend here in this event.
And he is with Mike Arsenault.
Saxon, a dominating performance here in event number 6, 100 points added to your total. I noticed in the final lunge there, you're switching between the front rack and the crossover. Why?
Just trying to get comfortable. I felt like just from the muscles, my biceps were a little ballooned, so just to switch that up a little bit, felt good.
You've had an inconsistent performance thus far in the competition. You have 3 finishes inside the top 3, 2 outside of the top 30. What is your message to yourself to bounce back after maybe disappointing finishes in events?
Yeah, the big thing was just not knowing those 2 events. You know, tell me where my fitness is. There's 14 events for a reason, and just keep my head up and keep grinding.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, 100 points on event 6. We'll see you later today.
Thank you.
Saxon Panchik's first win of these 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games and the second event win of his career. The men are done with up and over. Women coming up next. Stay with us here at the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games.
Brian.
Delvin's head is up in the air. Wins on this one. Morgan Kyle Goodmanson. You guys doing good?
Action continues here on day number 3 of the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games. We're inside the North Park at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Chase Ingram. Nikki Brazier is down on the competition floor. Event number 6 for the women. You go up and then you go over.
We also do 12 ring muscle-ups, just like the men. And Adrian Bosman always raising the bar, and this time raising the number of ring muscle-ups. 3 rounds for time, 12, 25, and 30 for the GHD sit-ups. The jump overs changing each time. And you look at the interference spread throughout this event. You look a lot at the hip flexors. The hips themselves are going to take a hit in this event, and leading off what we had earlier this morning. And at the end, if it's going to come down to a race on the feet and the lunges, it's going to come down to who wants it more.
Those are the keys to success presented by Bear Complex. Let's go down to Nikki Brazier with more on the log.
Hey guys, these are very basic up and over movements that we perform in our CrossFit gyms and in our lives every single day. But if you watch the men's heats that just went, you probably noticed we haven't changed out any of this equipment for the ladies. So the women taking the floor will tackle the exact same log as the men did, 50 inches high, 8 inches around. Pretty high for some of the women that are about to be coming out here. And so we'll have to see who wants it more. When they can get up and over, they can use whatever body parts they want, but they'll have to get that out of their system, because as the event progresses, they won't have that luxury.
Tell you what, the only familiarity I have with that movement is running from the cops after getting house parties busted and hopping fences.
It's a good life skill to have, kids. 19 women in this first of 2 heats. Sarah Kaya is in lane number 11, coming off that great performance in heat number 1 of the Capital event. But Rebecca Fuselier is on the field, and you talked about recovery. She's had the least amount of time, but was part of what will become, I think, one of the more iconic moments in CrossFit Games history.
Yeah, what she did this morning was incredible as far as her willingness to suffer through the end. But what the most incredible part was the community behind her. We talk about sport being at the top of the pyramid when we look at CrossFit itself. You go through all the gymnastics, weightlifting, nutrition, metabolic conditioning, but sport. We separate that so much from the affiliate side, and this is where the affiliate community came and bled into the DNA that is the sport of CrossFit.
Rebecca Fuselier now has to shake off the ordeal, as all of these athletes do. That was the Capital event, and find a way to get through this next challenge that begins with the 12 ring muscle ups. We are underway. Opening heat for the women here in event number 6, the second of 3 events that they will face here on Friday, and they still do not know what the challenge that awaits them tonight is.
And when you look at this event relative to, say, the men, is the ring muscle-ups are definitely going to be a much bigger factor for the women than the men. One reason in particular is just they're just doing the same volume. Over the last decade, there's always been that, you know, if it's 12, maybe it's 9. If it's 10, maybe it's 7. That kind of difference between, but they're all doing the same number. And so navigating through that will be the bigger portion of this event as far as who will succeed and fall behind, as well as, look, the log over, that's staying at the same height, but when you look at the boxes, they're a little bit lower, 30 inches, but it still doesn't change the importance of the box being a big separator with this group.
Freyova, Mikulishin, Gazan, Kohlenbrander, Moosbrugger, and Karatala Sanahuyu are all onto their up and overs. Danny Spiegel there as well. Freyova leads, sees through 19 reps. At the 37 mark is when she'll be able to move on to the GHDs.
Now, one thing to consider, if you look back at the semifinals, when one of the standardized events across all of them was the legless rope climb event. So all of these athletes have been vetted as far as having pull-up endurance, or at least upper body pulling endurance and upper body pulling stamina. So this is a field that appropriately has been tested and vetted to fare somewhat better on the ring muscle-ups than not.
Caroline Spencer on the right. She and her husband, Austin, competing here at the CrossFit Games together. The 5th married couple to be competing together at the Games in the same year.
Now, we mentioned that the box height is different for the women, 42 inches for the men, 30 for the women, but has not changed is the height of this log. So it was a mere formality for the men. They can just kind of pummel horse clear over. But for this one, this is a much different physical test for the women than it was for the men, being the same height log that they're working on.
Karin Freyova is the first woman done with those up and overs. Rebecca Fuselier in second place right now. She's on the GHD in the background, and Bailey Rail moving to the GHDs as well. Freyova's best finish was a 20th in event number 1, and then the second part of event 2, the shoulder to overhead portion of that event.
We think of two completely different athletes when you look at Karin Freyova and Rebecca Fuselier. Freyova sitting at 5'10", Fuselier is just right at 5'2". So the advantage and disadvantage they have are completely different out here on the field, where Fuselier may be better at, say, high-volume gymnastics. Freyova can use her size and athleticism to navigate the jump portion of this event to take advantage of that.
Fuselier is now your leader, and she was a former level 10 gymnast who started CrossFit at 13 years old. So the rings are going to be no problem for her, and she did very well on the up and overs over that log.
And the question is, when we cycle back around, how's the box height going to fare for her?
The 67 rep mark, she will move back to the rings to begin round number 2. Fuselier is done with round 1. Bailey Rail has now finished up her GHDs and has moved into second place. Karin Freyova will be done with 1 more rep.
So right at the 4-minute mark after round number 1. And we're just talking about that 39th place finish in event for number 5 might be the most celebrated 39th place finish in the history of the CrossFit Games. Just what she had to endure the entire time, because there was no time cap for this morning's event. Everyone, it was demanded that they finish this event. And she did, and she did it the hard way, because Fuselier, if you guys didn't watch, it was a 200-meter Husafell carry from start to finish, where the second half was up the stairs. On the first half, you could carry it any way which she wants. She bear hugged that the entire way. She did it the hard way, and it took her the longest time, but to come back in this event and be in the position she is now is remarkable.
Fuselier is through 8 of the 12 muscle-ups here in round number 2. Bailey Rail 1 rep back, as is Karin Freyova. Rail back to work, and she will now tie Fuselier for the lead. And with that rep, she will overtake her.
What's nice is she looks very good on the rings up into this point. And this is something we've seen, Sean, as you look on the left, her finishing places. Most athletes have been all over the place. There's not really been the most consistent athletes, except for the ones that you see at the top, but it seems like almost like everybody has one event just right outside the skis.
Bailey Rail is a former collegiate golfer. She played at Drury University. And in high school, she qualified for the Class 4A state championships in 3 of her 4 years, and she was 16th at the state tournament in 2013 and was 3rd at sectionals, 2nd at district, and was 2nd at the Central Ozark Conference tournament.
So better than us.
That's essentially what I'm saying.
Shoot, my 4-year-old son's better than me. I am terrible at that sport.
You and me both, my friend. 104 reps is when Bailey Rail will get to move on to her second of 3 sets of GHDs. This is the 30-inch box jump up and over. Your feet can't touch it, but no other part of your body can make contact as you work your way over.
I like what Rebecca's doing on the right. She's landing low. I mean, she doesn't have to jump nearly as high to get on top of the box. It's more of how high and how quick can you pull your knees up, and that's just going to limit the amount of exertion you do each and every box jump. And when it comes to a box jump over, where the requirement different than a box jump is that you do not have to stand up all the way. Being able to stay low is just one way to conserve your energy.
Bailey Rail is your leader. She's on the bottom left. Rebecca Fuselier, Karen Freyova, and Victoria Campos, along with Alex Gazano, the athletes behind Bailey Rail. And Rail now moving to the GHDs for her second round of 30. Bear Complex, the official grip of the NOBULL CrossFit Games. Head to bearcomplex.com to shop the best grips on the planet. Get up to 15% off. Bailey Rail and Rebecca Fuselier continuing to lead the pack here in the opening heat of event number 6 for the women. Here comes Karen Freyova.
And keep your eye in the middle where Rebecca Fuselier was, is that her cycle rate on these GHDs is really where she got ahead of both Freyova and Rail. You can see her on the right side of your screen. Being a smaller athlete at 5'2" versus Freyova and Rail, who are both at 5'7", is that she's using that size and quickness to her advantage on a GHD sit-up where really cycle rate is your biggest asset as far as getting off this before other people.
134 reps is when round 2 will be done, and Rail has 3 to go. She and Fuselier have really separated themselves from that pack. Bailey Rail is done, and she is heading back to the rig, and here comes Rebecca Fuselier. Still plenty of athletes on those box jump overs. Amanda Barnhart is one of them. She's in the black top there.
And we talked about the ring muscle-ups really being the premium movement that's going to dictate who does well and who doesn't in this event. And if you look back on, one of the things that Amanda Barnhart has always been trying to improve in its high-volume pulling gymnastics. And, that may be really the separator. I don't see, she's an athlete, right? Getting over the log, the box, I don't really see that being an issue. What she's going to do with the barbell at the end, but how she's working through these ring muscle-ups might be the crux for her.
Bailey Rail has 5 reps to go in her final set of 12. Fuselier is creeping up. And now she is tied with Rail. And she will take a break with 5 remaining. Karen Freyova in the background, beginning her 3rd and final set of ring muscle-ups. And then closest to the screen, that's Victoria Campos. Here are your top 2 women, Bailey Rail on the left and Rebecca Fuselier on the right.
And if you look at the 3, if they all get to the lunges right around the same time, which they may, right, you're going to see Rail and Freyova maybe get ahead of Fuselier before they get to the box jump overs, maybe extend that a little bit. For Rebecca, she's going to have to keep pace here as close as she can, and she maybe need to make a bigger move when we get to the clear overs, because that barbell, I think, may be the toughest part for Rebecca versus the other 2.
Rail onto the jump overs here on the pig, 2 feet wide. You have to land with your back facing the pig.
That's a big stipulation there, because a lot of athletes will, they'll try that. We just see that on bar facing burpees all the time. Even burpee box jump overs to a certain extent is, can I save a little time by twisting in the air? The answer is yes, you can. As far as here's concerned, it's out of the question. You got to stay facing the same direction as you do when you take off.
Fuselier is done with her final set of ring muscle-ups, and she will join Bailey Rail on the final up and overs. And remember, you have to clear that pig in one jump. Feet can't touch the top.
And watch Rail at the bottom. It's really just a turn, keeps that plant foot there, and she steps into where Rebecca takes 1 or 2 steps away and then walks back. It's a little bit of a running start. It does help the jump itself.
Elena Karatala-Sanahuya in the background has moved up into 3rd place. Karen Freyova now onto the up and overs as Bailey Rail moves to the GHDs for the final time. At the 201 rep mark is when she will move to the 125-pound axle bar and lunge at 84 feet to the finish. Rail, one of those mayhem athletes, and this is a movement they just fall out of bed doing.
their buy-in to joining the program is 200 for time. I'm just kidding. It's not. But maybe.
Elena Carratala-Sanahuya has now passed Fusile for second place. Victoria Campos sits in fourth as she has passed Karen Freyova as Bailey Rail is still the only woman on her final set of GHDs. She has 5 remaining. And here goes Bailey Rail onto the 125-pound axle bar. 84 feet between her and the finish line.
Now that move she's having, putting on the weight belt, and that's there to help stabilize her midline through what is going to be a very taxing movement. Having that bar on the front rack, doing walking lunges after all the jumping you've done, after 90 GHD sit-ups, that midline is absolutely smoked, not to mention everything that she did this morning up into this point.
Fusile, Carratala-Sanahuya, and Campos are all on to the GHDs, and now Karen Freyova is getting started on those, but it's Bailey Rail who is way out front here in the first of these 2 heats.
Saxon Patchett was talking about that rack position, and if you look at the arms, right, hands in contact with the axle bar, but the action on the bicep itself to make sure that bar doesn't slide off the front part of your shoulder is massive. And after all the ring muscle-ups and the bear hugs that they've gone through up right to here, is that he said it's like the arms were just smoke, which is why he went to that crossover position in the front rack. But Bailey Rail, I mean, I did not expect anybody to go wire to wire.
Bailey Rail has not put the barbell down, and she is the only woman on this portion of the event, and Bailey Rail is going to take heat number 1. Impressive performance from Bailey Rail, 14 minutes, 15.70 seconds. Rebecca Fusile and Elena Carratala-Sanahuya are on to the lunge. Sanahuya just put the barbell down. And here comes Fusile.
And my question was, how is she going to handle the bar at the end part of this lunge? And the answer is pretty darn well so far.
And give Rebecca Fusile a ton of credit for being able to bounce back from what she went through earlier today and come out here and perform in event number 6. Impressive so far for her. Here's Victoria Campos, who's creeping up on Fusile.
You know, this is the ultimate test of fitness here at the CrossFit Games, but a lot of the things you look for is those silver linings when things aren't exactly going your way. And the one thing I've seen from Rebecca, as Campos is closing out here, is she's tough, right? There's a no quit element in there, and you got to put a lot of respect to that. And you can see as the grip is just gone.
And fights through it and is able to get that barbell into the front rack position. Karen Freyova is on the left side of your screen. She is starting to put some pressure on Fusile, but Fusile is doing everything she can to hold on to this thing because getting it up to her shoulders has been a problem.
And the problem is she can't see anybody behind her, so she's just got to do everything she can to get across the line.
Fusile is in.
Wow. Girl's got guts, man.
Fusile's going to take second in the heat. For a second, it looked like Ellie Turner come across, but that was not the case. But Fusile in at second place, 15:55.70 seconds. Here comes Paige Powers on the left side of your screen. Race to the finish, and Ellie Turner is going to win. Freyova, pardon me, is going to win that. Paige Powers is in. That is Elena Carratala-Sanahuya, who looks to be the next to finish. Julia Cato also finished, and Victoria Campos is across. Elena Caratalasanahuya is done. Alice Gazan finished just ahead of her, and there's Sydney Mikulishin who's in. Or probably Freya Moosbrugger who came across. Sayer Kaya, and now here comes Danielle Spiegel. Ellie Turner, I think, is already across the finish line. We just don't have a final score for her yet. I think Amanda Barnhart also finished up as well. There's Elisa Fuliano, who was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis 8 months ago and realized that her window to make the CrossFit Games was shrinking, and she had to pour everything she could into it this year, and she made it. But it's Bailey Rail, 4:15.70 seconds, who's your heat winner. And it was a battle between Rail and Fuselier for the majority of that event.
At the beginning, Freo was in the factor there at the beginning, but after that, Rail took over on the third set of ring muscle-ups and then really extended her lead after these pig clear overs. And then Rail, once she picked up the bar, she went end to end on the front rack walking lunges, and that's got to be in the back of some of the athletes' mind in heat number 2 of what it may take to get a top time in this event.
Bailey Rail, 14:15.70 seconds, the only woman to go sub-15. Rebecca Fuselier at 15:55.70 seconds. Freyova, Powers, and Kato rounding out the top 5. Moving on to the second and final heat for the women as we get things reset at the North Park here. On day number 3 of competition for the individuals at the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games from the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, Wisconsin. Sean Woodland alongside Chase Ingram and Nikki Brazier down on the field. Overall standings, all is now right with the world. Tia Toomey by 2 points over Mal O'Brien. Emma Lawson sits in 3rd, and Haley Adams has moved into the top 5. Danielle Brandon now sits in 5th, tied in points with Christy O'Connell. Event number 6, up and over, presented by Bear Complex.
3 rounds for time, 12 ring muscle-ups, 25 jump overs on 3 different implements, the log, box jump overs, and pig clear overs, followed by 30 GHD sit-ups. After all of that, a 84-foot axle bar front rack walking lunge to the finish line. Now, I said it was all about the hips, but for the women's side, it actually may be all about the dips, because the ring muscle-ups is going to be a big separator. And I tell you what, keep your eyes on Tia Toomey, who I think may actually try to go unbroken every single round, and who wants it more at the end.
Tia Toomey will be in the leader's jersey. She will be in lane number 10, looking to widen her lead over Mal O'Brien in this event. Mal O'Brien will be right next to her in lane 11, but in lane number 12, Haley Adams, who, as we mentioned, is now inside the top 5. Tia Toomey is where we are all used to seeing her, on top of the overall standings, but only by 2 points. Let's go down to Nikki Brazier.
Now, you mentioned that Haley is now inside of that top 5, and the real question is, she's in a precarious situation. Is she, and how is she going to be able to come back from what we saw earlier this morning at the Capitol? If you remember, she came out looking really strong in that run and was one of the first female athletes to get into downtown. But when it came to some of those heavier elements, started out strong, but ended up losing her grip a little bit. And we have all been there in the gym when your arms give out, your shoulders give out, and you need to grit through that mental toughness just to get to the end of a workout. A couple things we do know about Haley: she trains with Mayhem, she trains with Rich Froning, which means she trains not only her physical strength, but her mental strength as well. We'll see if it works.
Haley Adams is masterful on the GHD. And through this grunt work style in the middle, I think this does play to her strengths a bit. It's just, how are these ring muscle-ups going to fare for her after that absolute collapse that we saw in the previous event just because of overall arm and grip fatigue?
And when you talk about toughness, you have got to talk about Haley Adams. Think about a couple of years ago at the ranch in Aromas where she did Atalanta and her hands were just bleeding profusely and she gutted through the whole thing.
She also ran through the hills of Aromas on what is a disastrous ankle injury. So I really, after the 2020 games at the ranch, I cannot think of many people tougher than Haley Adams.
Tia Toomey is your leader early here on these first set of 12 ring muscle ups. She has done it. She'll get right to work on the log.
For tia-Clair Toomey, not having the best start that she obviously would have wanted coming into this, getting the leader jersey, it took till day 3 basically to get to it. This is an event where Tia can reclaim basically her dominance over the field. There's really nothing in this event that's going to trip her up. Her ability to do high volume, high sets of unbroken ring muscle-ups is second to none in the women's field. That was no more evident last year in that ring muscle-up, bar muscle-up event that also had pig flips in it. So I could see this being that the last time we have to talk about Tia maybe stumbling towards the end.
25 reps here. At the 37 rep mark is when they will be able to move on to the first set of GHDs. And Tia Toomey continues to lead here through 32 of the 67 reps in this first round. And now Tia Toomey will move to the GHDs. Toomey's only stumble was in the skill speed medley. That's event 3 when she finished 23rd, did not even make it into the second round.
And it is such an odd stumble when you think of the one movement that gave her that place finishing, and it was single unders. But the amount of points that she lost because of that, I almost liken it back to 2018 where a sandbag fell out of Matt Fraser's backpack and he lost 45 points because of it. It wasn't a measure of him not having the ability to do well in a certain event. It was something as simple as a single under. 75 single unders unbroken is the reason why she was in the hole at which she was.
Tia Toomey cranking through these 30 GHDs at the 67 rep mark is when she will be done with round number 1, and she will make her way back to the rig. Mal O'Brien sits in second, followed by Emma Lawson, the 2 women immediately behind Tia in the overall standings. And there is Haley Adams as Tia Toomey is out front. Back to the rings, second set of 12.
Tia went unbroken on the first set. Now last year, there were 48 ring muscle-ups in the middle of the chipper on day number 1, and it was a split between ring muscle-ups, double or bar muscle-ups, and back to the rings. She went unbroken on all of those sets of 12, so this is nothing new as far as set number that tia-Clair Toomey is not used to.
Mal O'Brien and Emma Lawson were also making their way back to the rings, as is Haley Adams now and Christy O'Connell, but Tia Toomey continuing to lead. 79 is what she's got to hit before she gets back to the 30-inch box for the jump overs there.
You see the straps, just the length of them makes this movement much more challenging than, say, what you would, a normal setup you would have in your gym.
And she will go unbroken. Toomey moves to the 30-inch box, 25 reps there. Time to beat Bailey Rail, 14 minutes, 15.70 seconds.
I like the hop off the middle of the box. She's not spending any time in the bottom. You'll see some athletes that'll land wide, stay low, and step off. But that little spring off, there's a give and take. It's faster off the box, maybe a bit more demanding on the quads and the legs, especially in the landing part versus, say, stepping off the box, but the cycle rate is much quicker.
Christy O'Connell has moved ahead of both Emma Lawson and Mal O'Brien for second place right now. Lawson on the left side of your screen, O'Brien on the right.
We may be seeing the future of our sport surrounding the greatest to ever do it. Not knowing how much is left in Tia's career, seeing what the future could look like on either side of her is pretty cool.
Getting up and over, looking strong.
Toomey gets to the 104 mark. That's when she'll move on for her second set of GHDs.
Look at the cycle between, on the left side of your screen, of Emma, Mal, and Tia, and what the difference you see on the right side with Chrissy O'Connell taking a bit more time in between reps. And as we said before, you can really extend the gap on everybody. The best opportunity is really on these box jump overs.
Toomey into the GHDs for the second time. 30 reps here. Bear Complex is the official grip of the NOBULL CrossFit Games. Head to bearcomplex.com to shop the best grips on the planet. Get up to 15% off. Toomey's got to get to 134 before round 2 is done.
So about judging at the CrossFit Games or anywhere, it's such a stressful job, and really, unless you have to judge someone like Tia Toomey.
Same deal with Rich Froning.
Rich Froning, Matt Fraser, all the greats. That was you always thought it might be the most stressful part, and it tends up being the easiest one just because they move so well.
Tia Toomey's career began back in 2015. She has never finished lower than second at the CrossFit Games and has 34 event wins in her career.
I don't think I've done 34 workouts this year.
Her coach and husband, bottom right-hand side of your screen in that light blue shirt, that is Shane Orr.
He looks as comfortable and relaxed as always. I'm sure that man has lost no sleep over the last 2 days.
Toomey back to the rings for the final time. Mal O'Brien and Emma Lawson in second and third, and Haley Adams is in fourth, followed by Danielle Brandon. Toomey's gone unbroken through her first 2 sets.
A trick when you're using long straps is what Tia's doing very well, and watch her gather herself at the base of the ring dip where she squeezes in really tight. A lot of times when you have smaller straps and that's not an issue, you can kind of land and press out immediately, but watch her turnover. She'll land, secure, and then separate the dip portion, where if it was shorter straps and less length on the straps themselves, is that she'd be a lot quicker out of that dip. But if you're too fast, you can fall through. You can slip out much easier on these long straps.
Tia Toomey got through 8 reps before she took a break, and now 4 reps remain for her. She was 30 seconds ahead of Mal O'Brien getting back to the rings. Emma Lawson is now back, as is Mal O'Brien, on the right side. Tia Toomey moves on to the jump over the pigs. 171 reps is the number that Toomey is looking to hit before she gets back to the GHDs for the final time. Time to beat again is Bailey Rails right now. 14 minutes, 15.70 seconds.
So what Tia is doing is she's stepping into the jump every time, but she's leaving a plant foot there. She'll land, keep that plant, pivot on it right in front. Saving seconds when you're in a stacked field like this is very valuable. It's one of those things where if I can save 5 to 10 seconds just by doing something that simple as far as transition between the reps is something that would be much beneficial at the end.
Mal O'Brien making her way to the pig. She is still in second place here, but Toomey has a sizable lead on the youngster.
As we approach the 9.5-minute marker.
And the next generation is really starting to take over. 15 rookies on the women's side. 3 of them are teenagers.
But I think she's willing to make a
Toomey onto the GHDs for the third and final time.
Let's give it up for tia-clair.
Christy O'Connell and Emma Lawson are now on their final set of up and overs. Toomey with 10 to go. Mal O'Brien now into the GHDs for the last time.
29.
Tia Toomey is done. Onto the 125-pound axle bar. 14:15.70 seconds is the time to beat, and Toomey's got plenty of time to get in inside of that. As now Emma Lawson is now approaching the GHDs.
Nobody else is there, but here we go. She is lunging it out, Joshua.
We are looking to go unbroken.
Bailey Rail did not put the barbell down, and I don't think Tia Toomey's going to either.
No, when you've been sitting behind the pack and having everyone, including us, asking, you know, what's wrong with Tia? Is this it for Tia? Are they going to beat it? And the one really easy way to quiet the noise, other than putting on that red and white, is to come out here and do this to the field in the next event once you got back in the top of the leaderboard.
Taking a second to adjust that barbell. And here comes Tia Toomey. And now a quick break, but she is so far ahead, that's just a minor inconvenience. Kids, mom's home, and I think playtime is over. 11:58.92 seconds. Now here comes Mal O'Brien, looking to only surrender 3 points to Toomey.
All right, it doesn't matter how much you win by. I mean, it's the old Fast and Furious rules. It doesn't matter if it's an inch or a mile. When here, you can beat me by a mile, but if I'm right behind you, it's still 3 points. So at the end, if Mal can get across the finish line, she was only 2 points back coming in. She's only going to be 5 points back going into the final event this afternoon.
But here goes Mal O'Brien back to work.
Mallory O'Brien with a couple of athletes in her rear view. She wants to take second.
Emma Lawson is on to the lunge.
One more lunge should do it.
And Mal O'Brien is in, and she is not going away easily. Haley Adams is on the lunge, and she was getting close to Emma Lawson. Danielle Brandon also onto the lunge.
And she's behind Emma Lawson by 15 points on the leaderboard, so this is big for Lawson, not surrendering anything to Haley Adams.
Lawson's going to take third in the heat and third now in the event. Haley Adams looking to catch Danielle Brandon, and this will be a race to the finish line. Haley is going to get there first.
She just come out of her shoes? Did I say a shoe?
Fourth place for Adams. Danielle Brandon is going to take fifth, and Cara Saunders is now across. Matilda Garnes finishing up as well. Here's Ariel Lowen.
Man, that's big for Haley to get ahead of Danielle Brandon if it is official, because she was only clear of her by 3 points. She did.
Here comes Paige Semenza.
Give it up for Paige.
Semenza is now done.
And there goes
And Ariel Lowen has finished up.
I think that ponytail gotta get off the wait and see.
Chrissy O'Connell finishing up. Lucy Campbell in a race with Laura Horvath, and Horvath is going to edge her out.
Lucy Campbell. Campbell getting it done right behind Horvath.
Jacqueline Dahlstrom is done. Emma McQuaid across the finish line, as is Alexis Raptis. The Magala, Helgadottir, Prevost, Wells,
There it is for Magala.
and Barnhart. Now, as Magala comes in, are the only women left. Turi Helgadottir is across. Here comes Carolyn Prevost. And Prevost shakes off a near stumble, and she gets across. Now, Brooke Wells.
We said it was a high volume set of ring muscle-ups, and after the injury that Brooke Wells suffered last year, the recovery time it takes, and some of the last things she's able to do is something like high volume ring muscle-ups. In fact, when they appeared in the quarterfinals, she really wasn't sure how it was going to hold up. It was one of the last movements she got cleared to do, and when you have this, that was already not a strength of hers prior to the injury, and to be off of that training for near a year, it's no surprise to see that be a struggle for her here, just as a product of the rehab that she's been doing since that injury.
Well, Amanda Barnhart is still on the field. And she is on her final set of up and overs.
Obviously, clear frustration.
Barnhart in 16th place overall. She was 7th in the last event. And you wonder how big of an effect that had on her.
Well, traditionally, when you have that amount of running in an event, it's not necessarily in her wheelhouse. I mean, she has that swimming background, so obviously metabolic conditioning has never really been a problem. But the toll that event this morning, I mean, the carnage that we saw on the front steps of the Capitol with those Husafell bags, and the totality of that event and the ability to recover. And we said the fatigue level of the arms, the grip, the forearms, the biceps to navigate through the end of that event. And for Amanda, as we said earlier, is that high volume pulling, especially ring muscle-ups, isn't a strong suit for her. This might have been a bad combination back-to-back for her.
Now, Tia Toomey from the get-go making a statement.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she set out to do. And a statement she made, as well as how it looked on the field. However, how it looks on the leaderboard, not much of a difference, because she only got 3 points on Mel, of which she'll only have a 5-point lead going in, and Daniel Brandon in the back dropped the bar at the line, had to take an extra step, and Haley Adam comes out of her shoe. Get that thing off me and get me across the finish line. So a huge finish for Haley Adams to keep herself within distance of that elusive podium position for Haley Adams.
Tia Toomey a minute faster than Mal O'Brien, but like you said, she's only going to pick up 3 points on the Rookie of the Year from 2021. Emma Lawson finishes in 3rd. Let's send it down to Nikki Brazier.
Tia, you were able to pull ahead early in that event, but you were flanked by the Young Bucks on your left and right who are coming for your title. How does that affect your strategy?
It's great for the sport, and it's awesome to see that we've got some hungry competitors. And yeah, it's just makes for a good competition.
Definitely. Now, earlier this morning, we saw arguably one of the most iconic events that we've ever had here at the Games. You were in downtown Madison on that run. In the context of your career, how does that event rank?
you know, every year there's a special event. Last year, I think paddling across the lake was really special. And then obviously going up to the Capel today, it just creates memories for the sport, for your athletes, and it's just great to be a part of.
Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Tia Toomey with her second event win of the competition and the 35th of her career, as she is still in the overall lead, but only by 5 points over Mal O'Brien. Team action coming up next. Stick around, everybody. You can head to games.crossfit.com for official results, standings, and more.